Well, hi everybody. Welcome to TFW Online, I guess you'd call it. And if you're tuning into our sort of Sunday service, it's very different, obviously, this week than normal. As a church, we love to meet together, and we place a high value on meeting together every week. It's something we just really enjoy and we love to do. But as with most churches, in this current situation, this current season we're in, we're having to just change what we do and how we do it. And so for the next several weeks, I guess, we're not really sure how long it'll last. We're going to meet virtually online, and that's the way we're going to communicate. That's the way we're going to do these kind of Sunday services, so that we've got some kind of way of gathering together, even though we're gathering together virtually. Before I dive into the message that I've got for you this week, just wanted to just acknowledge that these are different days. They're difficult days in many ways for so many people. As I record this now, I'm on day 10 of isolation. I came down with symptoms last Wednesday with this continuous dry sort of cough and a fever and feeling just like I had the flu. And it's not been easy. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a sort of testing time, and I'm still left with a little bit of a cough, and hoping that that'll just clear up. But just feeling wiped out and pretty tired. So for a lot of people, we're in different seasons. Some of you are self-isolating because you're in a vulnerable category, and you've been advised to shut yourself away now for quite a while. So difficult time, and we just want to make sure that as best we can, we stay in touch, and we can still be the church together, even though we don't meet together on Sunday mornings. Just a few announcements before I dive into the message as well. First thing, I guess, is the leadership team. We're really keen on everybody increasing communication in this season. We really want people to stay in touch. So make sure you pick up the phone, talk to somebody, email somebody, maybe write somebody a letter. Let's just check in on each other, make sure people are doing okay. It's really vital that we do that. Also, I know there's a lot of you that will want to help. You'll just want to do things to help this whole situation. And as the days and weeks roll out, there's lots of initiatives in the pipeline, things we can do to sort of help and encourage other people. So we'll be letting you know about those. So keep your ear to the ground. We'll be sending out emails and sort of announcements, ways you can help. And even if you are self-isolating, there are still things that you can do. So everybody can make a difference during this season. So listen out for announcements. That's really important. And then really important too is if you're struggling, that's nothing to be ashamed of. And if you need somebody to talk to, you need somebody to pray with you, please pick up the phone. Call one of the elders, call me, call one of the staff, whoever it is. Call one of your friends, call your small group leader. But don't suffer in silence. It looks like this situation is going to go on for quite some time. And so needing other people is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of being human. And we all need other people in our lives. So don't suffer in silence. Make sure you reach out to somebody. Well, let's dive into the message for this week. As some of you will know, we started a brand new series 3 weeks ago called The Man Who Changed the World. And this series is all about Jesus, and the idea that we look at how Jesus changes our lives, how he changes the world as we run up to Easter. And so on the first week 1, we looked at how Jesus called us to not be afraid. Do not be afraid. He says it over and over and over again in the Gospels. Don't be afraid. Do not fear. And even 2 weeks ago, perhaps had no real idea how timely that kind of message is for us. And that's his message to us today too. Jesus says, don't be afraid. And you might say, well, Steve, there's lots of reasons to be afraid in the world. And there are. But Jesus helps us to deal with that fear in very real ways. So if you haven't heard that message, go back. If you've got time on your hands these days, go back to our podcast and you can catch up on the series. So that was the first week, don't be afraid. And then last week, Josh Thomas spoke on grace, how Jesus changes our lives. He changes the world through grace, being compassionate to people. And he calls us to be that way as well. And again, what a timely message with all of the things going on in the world right now. It's almost like, when you look at the news, you can see two very different responses to trouble. Some people are doing heroic things, particularly those who work in the healthcare sector. We've got people in our church who work in the medical field. And, when everyone else is running away from disease and trouble, they're running toward it to help. But not just that, you see in community people posting things through other people's doors and saying, hey, if you need anything, people setting up community WhatsApp groups, all kinds of ways that people are stepping up to help. But unfortunately, we also see in the news this kind of selfishness in society, this sort of me first attitude that seems to come to the fore in times of crisis. And so Jesus changes the world by being compassionate and loving and gracious towards people who don't deserve it. And he calls us to be the same way. So this week, week 3, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking this week about peace. Peace. How does Jesus change the world? He changes the world because he establishes peace. And he invites us to enter into a life of peace. Peace in our hearts, peace in our relationships, peace in the way that we approach conflict, just peace in our world. In John chapter 14, verse 27, Jesus says these words. He says, peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. I was reflecting on that verse this last couple of days, and first thing that strikes me is Jesus says, not only does he say, I give you peace, but he says, I don't give to you as the world gives. It's interesting, isn't it? What does he mean by that? When he says, I don't give you peace as the world gives. Because, I think sometimes when we talk about worldly peace, or the kind of peace the world gives, what we're talking about is circumstantial peace. It's the kind of peace that we have when everything is coming together in our life, when everything's just right, when our relationships are right, when our health is okay, when our career is going fine, when we've got all the practical and physical things that we need, then we sort of say, okay, I've got peace now. Everything's just fine. But most of us know that peace is so hard to hold on to. It's a sort of an elusive kind of peace, isn't it? Circumstantial peace or natural peace. Because as soon as you get one relationship that's working really well, maybe it's your friendship or marriage or whatever, you can almost guarantee that another relationship starts to struggle. Or maybe all of your relationships are fine, but then your health struggles. Or maybe your health's fine, but you lose your job or you have financial issues. The world that the peace that the world offers is often just so elusive. And it's interesting to me that Jesus says, I don't give peace in the same way that the world gives peace. In other words, he's offering us a totally different kind of peace. And then he says these words, do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. It's interesting, he says, don't let your heart be troubled. Don't let it happen. Again, I don't know about you, but it seems to me that whenever my heart is troubled, it seems like I have no choice. You know what I mean? It's just happening to me. I experience anxiousness, or I experience worry, or concern, or fear. And it seems when you're in that there's nothing you can do about it. But Jesus says, no, 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 there is something you can do about it. You can choose to not let your heart be troubled. There is something we can do. And I want to talk about that in this message today. What are the things we can do? Because there's lots of things in this life that we can't do. There's lots of things that we don't know in these kind of times what to do. But there are some things we can do that will give us this peace that Jesus offers. So I got three things. There's loads of things we could talk about when it comes to peace. The subject of peace is right throughout the Bible. But just three for us to think about this morning. The first one I want to say is this, is that peace, true peace, the kind of peace that Jesus offers, it comes firstly through honesty. Honesty. If you want to access peace with God, you have to start with being honest. However you're feeling right now, it's okay. It's okay to be emotional. You know, there's this kind of idea around the church world that we sort of have to deny our feelings and we just have to, everything will be okay. Just be full of faith or be full of stoicism or something like that. And just deny the way you feel. But actually denying the way you feel is never a pathway to peace. You have to start with acknowledging how you feel. And so if you feel afraid, be honest about that. If you feel anxious, be real, be honest. Maybe you don't feel fearful, maybe you don't feel anxious, maybe you feel frustrated, you're just really frustrated with the current situation. Or maybe you feel angry, that life isn't going well at the moment for so many people. Maybe you feel down, low, depressed. But if you really want to experience peace, it's really important to be honest about how you feel. Firstly, with somebody else. I would encourage you this week, maybe even today, to stop and tell someone how you feel. Tell someone how you feel. It's amazing how when you open up and you're a little bit open, a little bit honest, a little bit authentic, it's amazing how peace can come. When you even just say to somebody else, do you know what, I'm a little bit worried. I'm a bit worried about my health, or I'm a bit worried about the economy, or I'm worried about my finances. And you tell somebody that, it sort of gets it out of your own mind and your own heart. And as you connect with somebody else, they're able to encourage you. Maybe pray with somebody and just say, hey, listen, would you pray for me? Because this is how I feel. Authenticity is the starting point for experiencing this kind of transformative peace. And not just being authentic with somebody else, but being authentic with God. What you and I really need to do is tell God how we really feel, because He already knows. He already knows. There's no point acting with God. You have to be real with Him. Tell Him how you really feel. In fact, Psalm 142, those of you who know me know that I love the Psalms. And because the Psalms are full of inspirational, kind of wonderful, words, but they're also full of a lot of honesty and a lot of reality. And Psalm 142, David is writing this psalm not in a place of comfort. He's not in the palace with all of his servants around and eating his grapes and drinking his wine or whatever he's doing, having just a great time. He's actually, it says here, he's in a cave. He's in a cave. He's going through a testing season, a difficult trial. And these are the words of David in Psalm 142. He says, with my voice I cry out to the Lord. With my voice I plead for mercy to the Lord. I pour out my complaint before Him. I tell my trouble before Him. Interesting words, right? He says, I pour out my complaint before God. I tell God my trouble. I tell God what's really going on. I love the honesty here that David gives us in Psalm 142. He's not denying his trouble. He's not denying his fear or the issues that he's facing. He's acknowledging them before God. I would encourage you to do the same thing. Those moments where fear bites. I'll be honest with you. When I came down with this illness 10 days ago, started getting the cough, getting the fever, and all of those things, I had a moment where I started getting a bit troubled by it. And a number of days since where I thought, man, I don't feel like I'm really getting better. What's going on? Am I going to be okay? Those are natural feelings. You should never feel guilty if you have those questions and those feelings. Guilt certainly isn't a pathway to peace. Be open and tell God, I'm a bit worried. And coming to him that way, that is a doorway. It is a pathway to real peace. It goes on to say in Psalm 142, the whole psalm is brilliant. It's not very long, but it's so timely for when you're in a season of trouble. Verse 3, he says, when my spirit faints within me, you know my way. In the path where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me. Look to the right and see. There is no one who takes notice of me. No refuge remains to me. No one cares for my soul. I cry to you, O Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. So I cry out to you, Lord. You're my refuge. Why don't you do the same? So that's the first thing. Peace comes through honesty, authenticity. Secondly, peace comes from letting go. It comes from letting go. We spend so much of our lives trying to hold everything together. In fact, that's one of the great causes of stress in our lives, is trying to be in control of everything, trying to hold life together. If I can just get all the pieces of my life and hold them together, then I'll be okay and I'll have peace. But that's not the way peace comes, not the kind of peace that God offers. Peace actually comes by letting go. It doesn't come by being in control. You and I will never be in control of everything in this life. And if you started to add up all the things that we can't control, it would be absolutely overwhelming. But it's true, isn't it? There's so many things we cannot control. One of them being COVID-19. You and I don't have control over that. So we have to let go. One of the keys to letting go, I think, is moving your attention from what if to what is. And I want to encourage you to do that this week. Move your attention from what if to what is. Fear always has a voice that asks, what if? What if? Maybe you're one of those sort of people that your mind starts to race ahead and you say, well, what if? What if? What if I get on the plane and it crashes? What if I reach out to somebody and they reject me? What if I get sick? What if I run out of money? What if I run out of toilet paper? So many what ifs in life. And you and I could sit in our homes during this season and we could ask the question, what if, over and over again. And guess what? We're not going to get an answer. All we're going to get are our own thoughts, our own fears, our own worries, our own uncertainties, our own imaginations. But we don't have an answer to what if. But if we move from what if to what is, then it's a different thing. What is dealing with reality, dealing with the things that are going on in our life. Here's a couple of what is. Number one, what is it that I can be thankful for? What is it that I can be thankful for? Even, and for most people, by God's grace, we're not going to get seriously ill during this season. We're just going to have to go through this season of isolation and so on. But it's a time where it's so easy to be unhappy and unthankful. We can start to see the frustrations can start to come out. You start to feel housebound. You can start to feel on top of your family and so on. But what is it that you can be thankful for? Colossians chapter 3, verse 15 says this: let the peace that comes from Christ rule in your heart, for as members of one body you are called to live in peace, and always be thankful. Let the peace of Christ rule in your heart, but always be thankful. Paul links peace here with thanksgiving. In the weeks to come, we're all going to need to get really good at being thankful. And especially those of you that are looking at 12 weeks of self-isolation, just be thankful. Thankful for what you do have in life. Be thankful for how things are going. Be thankful for the home you have, the food you have, all of that stuff. Just keeping a free heart, a free spirit that's thankful is a real key to peace. So many things you can't control, but you can be thankful for what you do have now, what you do have today. Here's another what is. What is it that I can do to make a difference? What is it I can do to make a difference? Fear, anxiety, worry, it always causes us to withdraw, to shrink back. Love causes us to lean in. And actually, one of the keys to peace, as we let go of the things we can't control, is we say, okay, what can I do today that will make a difference in this world? There are practical ways of helping other people. And for some of you, you'll want to get really busy in this season and help practically, checking up on people, making sure they've got the food they need or the items that they need. But there's other ways of helping people too. There are spiritual ways of helping people. Picking up the phone. Maybe you're isolated and you think, well, I can't run around buying food or getting food for other people. But you could pick up the phone and you could have a way of really encouraging somebody every day. Wouldn't it be great for 12 weeks if you said, right, every day I'm going to phone somebody and all I'm going to do is encourage them and build them up and lift them up. That's something you can do. That's a what is attitude. Be creative. Do things with your time that you feel, man, I'm using this time well. It's a pathway to peace. Read that book you've always meant to read and you've never got around to it. Paint a picture. Do some gardening. There's so many things that you can do, which are, you're dealing with reality. They're what is kind of issues. And so I really encourage you to do that today. If you want to know the kind of peace that Jesus offers, let go of the things that are out of your hands, things you don't get to decide. Trust that actually, when things are not in your hands, they are in his hands. They're in God's hands. I remember several years ago now, actually 7 years ago, 2013, I was getting ready to have heart surgery. And some of you know my story. I had 2 different heart arrhythmias. And I remember one day sort of trying to convince myself that I wasn't worried. And I prayed and I said, God, I know I'm in your hands. I know I'm in your hands. And I felt what I've come to realize is the voice of God's Spirit in my life. I felt this nudge, this whisper from heaven. And I felt as though God said to me, you don't really believe that. And I said, no, God, I know I'm in your hands. I really believe I'm in your hands. And I felt this feeling, you don't really believe that. And, what I felt God say to me in those moments was that actually I was trying to hold on to everything. That if my prayers were good enough, if my life was good enough, everything would go well. And I had to really let go before that heart surgery and just say, okay, God, help me to get to a place where I really believe, where I really trust that I really am in your hands. And God helped me. He did. And actually, I went into that surgery a number of weeks later, And I can honestly say I had a supernatural peace, that I was really in God's hands, that He was really in control. I had to let go of not being in control, but trust that He is in control. And made a huge difference. Now, a lot of you listening to this message, you'll be members of our church and you'll be believers and Christians. But there might be some of you listening to this message today and you say, Steve, I'm on the fringes of faith. I'm on the fringes of this God stuff. I'm not really sure about this Christianity stuff. And if that's you, first of all, it's great that you're listening to this. That's wonderful. But secondly, let me just encourage you that maybe during this time where the whole world has been turned upside down by a virus, it might just be the season for you to stop and say, actually, yeah, I need a bigger perspective on life. I need a different perspective on life. I want to encourage you to think about the fact that we are not just physical beings. We're not just flesh and blood. We were created spirit, soul, and body. And we have this deep need to be connected to our Creator. We have a deep need to be connected to God. And you'll never really know supernatural peace until you know Jesus, because He is the Prince of Peace. He's the one who provides it. When you have a bigger perspective on life, you suddenly realize that it's not all up to you. In fact, most of life isn't up to you. Your life is in the hands of another, and it's a real pathway to peace. I said I had three things today. Final one is this: peace comes thirdly from choosing to trust God. From choosing to trust God. Have you tracked with me? Peace comes through honesty, number one. Peace comes from letting go of the things you can't control, number two. But then number three, peace comes from choosing to trust God. It's a choice you have to make. You have to decide, I will trust God in this season of my life. You know, perhaps our biggest battle isn't with finding peace, but it's actually with trusting God. It's actually saying, okay, God, I am going to trust you. Romans chapter 15, verse 13 says this: I pray that God, the source of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace because you trust in Him. Then you will overflow with confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit. Here's the interesting thing that Paul says here in Romans 15. He says, I pray that God, who's the source of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace because you trust in Him. It's not He'll fill you with joy and peace so that you can trust in Him. And see, that's the wrong way around. God, if you give me joy and if you give me peace, then I'll trust you. No. Paul says, because you trust, because you choose to trust, you get filled with joy and peace. The trusting comes first. Now, some of you might be saying today, Steve, how can you believe in a God who would allow so much suffering in this world? Steve, have you not seen the news lately? How can you believe in a God who allows all of this suffering to go on? A couple of things I want to say as we start to bring this message to a conclusion. First one is this: that the Christian faith doesn't deny suffering. It explains it. It doesn't deny suffering, it explains it. Christianity doesn't say that if you come to God and you believe in Him and you trust Him, that there'll never be any suffering. What Christianity says is, here's the narrative of why there is suffering. It explains why there's suffering in our world. Here's the thing. Some people say, I could never believe in God. I could never believe in God who allowed this kind of suffering in our world. But okay, then don't believe in God, but you still have the suffering. If you get rid of God, you're still left with the same suffering and the same problems. Christianity does is it says, hey, here's why there's suffering in the world. That this world is not the way that God created it to be. That this world is fallen, this world is broken, that we're fallen, that we're broken. But in Jesus, God has done something about the problem of our fallenness, our sinfulness, and our brokenness. He doesn't promise us that we'll get off scot-free in this life. He doesn't promise us that if we just come to him, we'll never get sick, nothing will ever happen. We're going to have to suffer in this life because there's trouble in this life. But there is a reason for our existence. The Christian faith, actually, is the only religion who has a God who says, I'm coming to suffer with you and for you. I'm not going to leave you on your own. I'm coming to suffer with you and for you. That's what Jesus does. He comes and dies in our place. He comes and pays the penalty of our sin. And he offers us life eternal. So that on the other side of suffering, there is hope. On the other side of death, there is life. There's resurrection. There's hope for eternity. Here's what it says in Romans chapter 5, verse 1. It says, therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Isn't that great? We're justified by faith, and we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. So we're going to finish this time, this message with just a word of prayer. And it might be today that you'd say, Steve, I need to let go and I need to trust God more. I've been trying to hold it all together. I've been trying to work out what's going to happen with my health, what's going to happen with my finances, what's going to happen with the people I love. And today I need to choose to let go, and I need to trust God more. And as we pray, you might just want to close your eyes and pray with me and agree that that's what you're going to do. Others of you, you say, Steve, I need to be honest about my fears. That's what I need to do. My takeaway is that I need to phone somebody and tell them I'm struggling. And I need to talk to God and tell him I'm struggling, tell him. And then finally, maybe you're the person and you say, Steve, I need to know God. I need God in my life. And maybe you need to come to God for the first time ever today and just say to God, help. Help. I need your help, God. I'm struggling and I need you. So would you pray with me? Would you pray with me right now? Let's pray. God, we live in a world where there is suffering and there is pain. But we thank you that you came to suffer with us and to suffer for us. And you, Jesus, reconciled us back to the Father so that we can have a kind of peace in this life that surpasses understanding. It's a supernatural peace, Jesus, that you offer us, not the kind of peace the world offers, not a circumstantial peace, a supernatural peace. And I pray for everybody listening to this message today, that they would experience that kind of peace that comes from you, from your Spirit. Lord, I pray for those who today, right now in this moment of prayer, they need to just let go and they need to trust you. They need to let go of trying to figure everything out. They need to let go of trying to hold everything together. They need to open up their heart to you and say, God, I'm just going to simply trust you. Lord, I pray for those who need to be honest with somebody else today. They need to pick up the phone. They need to ask for help. And Lord, I pray for anyone listening to this right now that says, Lord, I want to know you. God, I need you in my life. I pray that even right now they might just quietly, in a moment of prayer, say, God, help me. I need you. Jesus, I need you in my life. Jesus, I need you in my life. And I pray, Lord, as they turn to you, they would experience the forgiveness of sin. They would experience the newness of life with you, and they would experience the peace that passes all understanding, guarding their heart and mind in Jesus. We ask it in your name. Amen. Well, friends, that's the end of our time together today. But, as we've said, don't be a stranger. Stay in touch. Reach out to others. Make sure that you are communicating. Some of our small groups are meeting through Zoom. Some of you have seen the Zoom platform. Our small group met that way a couple of days ago, and it worked really well. So there's lots of ways that you can stay in touch with other people. And together, we'll get through this. All right. God bless you.